Hey, how's it going, people? And welcome back to another front-end and Web3 tutorial. So, over the last couple of weeks, I've been studying Solidity and Web3 programming in general, and for the first time ever, I wrote a complete smart contract on my own from scratch without using any templates. And this is exactly what we'll be building as well. It's about 300 lines long, and trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be building a mini portal for companies/government where a company can register themselves as a business. So initially when they're logged in for the first time, there's going to be a register company button right there. And once they register their company, an authorized government admin can approve or reject the company. It's going to be a list under the approved companies. And only once the company is approved can they issue receipts for sales they make. We will be pulling all of this data from our smart contract, from the statistics to every receipt, and same thing for the admin side as well. The right side is more of like a demo section just to fill in space on the front end. So our entire backend will be built on Solidity, and for the front end, we will be using Reactjs and Material UI as our design library. We will also be using Thirdweb to test and deploy our smart contract initially. And on the front end side, we'll be using it for MetaMask authentication and also to interact with our smart contract. And before we start coding, make sure you do know React.js firstly, but you will also need to create an account with Thirdweb. It's free, of course. You will just need to create it with MetaMask. And also talking about MetaMask, we'll be using the Goerli test network. You can use any test network you want, but make sure you do have some Ethereum. So if you don't have any, I just Google it, right? Just Google Goerli faucet. And I personally use the second one, which is this one right here. And you mine your own Ethereum, depending on your machine. For every 0.1 Ethereum, it will take you about 10 to 15 minutes to mine. And I think 0.1, or maybe like just to be on the safe side, have 0.3 Ethereum. I think that should be more than enough. But yeah, let's get started. All right, so in your projects directory, create a new folder with your project name. I called mine receipts, and inside of it, create two new folders. One called client for our front-end application, and the second called Web3 for our backend application. And what I'm going to do now is open this with VS Code. So I'll do that, open it with code, the current directory. And once you have code open or whichever terminal you're using, I will use the inbuilt terminal, and I'll actually split this into two. So I will use the left side for my clients, and the right side for my Web3. So let's go into each folder. Now to initialize both projects, we will initialize both the projects first, and then we'll build out our smart contract and finally the front-end application. So on the client side, let's use this command called npx. Let me copy this. It's from the official docs. All right. So npx thirdweb, use the latest version and create. And let's create the app. So create app, enter. This should take about like 30 seconds to a minute, maybe. Alright, so once it's done checking for updates, let's name our project. Since we're already inside the clients folder, I will just say like, I don't want to name it, I'll just like install it in the current directory. So press enter. I will be using AVM for Ethereum. And then let's use Bytes, JavaScript, or yeah, I'll be using JavaScript. And once that's there, it should install the packages. Just in case it doesn't install packages, do an npm i. All right, so let that finish. But on our Web3 side, let's use the same command again. So npx thirdweb latest create, but this time we want to create a contract, right? So contract, enter. Checking for updates again. All right, so same thing again. What you want to name your project? We're already inside the Web3 folder, so I'm not going to name it Web3. I'm just going to say install it in the current directory. Let's use hardhat. And then for our contract name, I am going to, again, just name it receipt maybe, or company receipts, whatever you want to name it. All right, that's it, enter. We will go to a contract from scratch, so empty, enter, and that should install the packages again. Once that's done, you will see the Web3 folder have some contracts, have some folders inside, some files inside, and the contracts in here, which is an empty project. It uses an empty contract, sorry, it uses Solidity, the latest version. And on the client side as well, you will see it installed our Vite application. And let's just do an npm run dev to see if it actually works. All right, so it's running on this address and port, so open it. And every time you install a new package or open like a Vite page for the first time, it's going to load, it's going to take a bit just because it compresses everything. It makes every package efficient, and after that, every time you refresh, it's going to be fine. So it's just on first load. Once you see the Thirdweb data or the landing page, you know your website is ready, and we can start coding the contract from there. So all right, there we go. There we go. So we see the Thirdweb, and let's start coding the contract now. All right, so I did make a change. I renamed my contract name to receipts. You can name this whatever you want as well. I called it receipts, and make sure contract name is called receipts as well. There's a few lines in here that you might want to know. The first is just the license identifier. The second is the version of Solidity that you want to use. 0.8.9 is the latest version. And then we're creating our contract, and inside of it, we do see an empty constructor. Now, constructor is the first function that ends. So let me comment this out, right? So it's the first function that runs, basically just that. So once you deploy the contract, the first thing it will do is enter the constructor and run whatever you tell it to run in there. But let's actually start like brainstorming ideas of what we will need in this contract. Some variables, some functions, and of course we will be commenting every side of it out. So the first thing that I'll do is create an address, make it public, and let's have the owner in there. Owner, oh god, owner. Again, initially it's just going to be a variable called nothing. So similar to TypeScript or similar to Java or some type languages, in JavaScript we will just do something like const owner is equal to null, or like just nothing, just that, right? But inside Solidity, you have to give it a type, if it's public or private, or other data types that we'll see as well. But yeah, so the owner is going to be a type of address, which is just an Ethereum address, which looks something like that, right? Like 0 times whatever your address is. So that's just going to be a type of address. The next thing we will do is create some structures. So let me actually do this, right? Structs. I'll comment this out. We will have some structures, and then I'll explain each of this. We will have some mappings. So again, mappings. What else will we have? We'll have some events, and then probably some modifiers as well. And again, you will learn what each of these are. Modifiers. And then under the constructions or constructors, I'll just call this as well. So this is going to be all the functions. Okay, so what is structs exactly? So in JavaScript, we have an object, right? An object can look something like const object is equal to a type of object with key pairs. Oh man, this is a scam. Bloody hell, all us do get scams. Let me close Telegram. All right, so const my object, or whatever your object name is, inside of it you can have, like, for example, name is equal to Salman, age is equal to 1 2 3. So you can have an object that looks like this, an object, and each object can have a name, an age, some attributes in there, right? Similarly, in Solidity, if you want to create an object, you create a structure. So let's actually do that. And a structure is basically not the object itself, but it's it's a template. It's an object template of what keys you want your object to have. So let's actually do it, and you'll understand it, right? So we will need 3 structures. One for the company itself, so the company can have a company name, the company address, or any more information you want to pass about the company. We will have one for the receipt itself. So every cell is going to issue a receipt. A receipt is going to have some items. So for example, a list of items which will have names. It will have the item prices, the item quantities, maybe the date of when the item was, the receipt was issued. And yeah, let's do that one by one. And finally, the third one. So we'll have a company one, we'll have a receipts one, and we'll have an admin one. So for the admin, we will just store the address of the admin, and then we'll also like say whether that admin is an admin and whether that admin is a super admin, right? So those are the three different templates that we'll create. Let's start by doing that. So to do that, you create a struct, call it what the structure you want it to be, company. And then let me just copy and paste this a couple times as well. The next one is going to be for receipts. And just because, okay, this is called receipts and this is receipts. So make sure like, no, these receipts you don't call them anywhere else inside this function or else the name will clash. But finally, an admin, right? And I will again comment each of these out. Structure, representing a company, representing a receipt, final representing an admin. Okay, so let's actually fill each of these out. So inside the company, we will store an address of the owner of the company. So what we'll do is the owner of the company is the company, right? So once you register a company, your MetaMask address is the company. We want to have an owner where your MetaMask address can have multiple companies. Your MetaMask address is the company, right? So an address of the owner, right? And then we will have a type of string, which is going to be a company name. We'll have another string, which is going to be the company address. If you want more company details, you can always pass in more, but let's just try and keep it a bit simple. And then remember, a company will need approval by an admin, right? To only issue sales, to issue receipts, or to be a registered company, it has to be approved. So let's do some variables there as well. So we'll need a boolean, which is just a true or false value, and whether it's approved. Okay, and by the way, in JavaScript, a semicolon at the end of the line is not necessary, but similar to Java or some other languages, we do need a semicolon at the end of every line. So whether the company is approved, we want to know who it's approved, maybe the date of when it's approved, who it's approved by. So let's do that. So an address of the admin who approved it, so approved by, and then a uint of approval date, and a uint is just an integer, right? An unsigned integer, and I'm going to say 256. So 256 is just a long integer, right? Of I think 256 bytes, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not really sure like what the mechanics behind this is, but yeah, an approval date. We will store for each company what the total sales are. So uint again 256. Total sales. Again, you can have monthly sales as well, and have a I'll just do total sales, but you can like divide the sales into monthly sales, daily sales, yearly sales, or quarterly sales, and all of that. But again, we're trying to keep it simple, right? So monthly sales, and then finally we'll store like for each company what receipts they've issued, right? So that's going to be an array of something. So it's going to be an array uint 256, but this time it's going to be an array, and then the receipts IDs. So receipt IDs, right? So every ID is just going to be an integer, but then we want it to be an array of integers, so many like integers in here, right? So that's our structure for the company. Let's do the receipt next. So the receipt is going to have a company address, so company ID, okay, which is going to be similar to this owner, the company ID. By the way, I should probably rename this and not have this the same. So let's do, I'm just going to do company ID instead, company ID, right? So company ID, and okay, so each receipt is going to have a company ID. It's going to have a uint 256. I'm just going to copy that since we're in it many times. A sale date of when the receipt was issued. A string of item name. So now I'm going to use a different logic this time, right? So I'm going to explain what I'm doing now. A uint 256 of item prices. Let me just write this down. okay, and then a uint 256 of item quantities. Okay, so here's what I'm doing, right? In here, we can create a structure called item, okay? And don't do this, don't write this, but I'm just going to explain. We can have a structure called item. So struct item, and in there, every item can have a name, it can have a price, and it can have a quantity, right? I didn't add a string and all that since I'm just explaining an item and a quantity. But when we want to return, we can't act. So when on the front end side, if we actually want to return an item, we can't return a structure. What we'll have to do is store a counter. So for example, store a counter. Again, this is not how you do it, but store a counter of let's say like something like item counter. Okay, item counter, and then 1. But then we will have to map through these items, and then for each item return the item that you get in here. And that's a really, like, we might do it for some stuff but not the item, because that's going to be really complicated. So instead, the way I'm storing each, let me remove this again. The way I'm storing each receipt is each receipt will have 3 different arrays. One is an array of items. So for example, TV, let's say we can have a microwave, whatever, however you spell it, okay? And then a similar size array. So each item will have a price of maybe like 12, maybe like $6.99, something like that, right? And then again, a similar array size where of quantities, so maybe 1 quantity and maybe 2 quantities for the microwave. This is just bugging me, so microwave, okay? So instead of having an array of objects, each with a name, price, quantity, I'm just going to have 3 different arrays, each of its size. So we know the 0, the first item, the name, the price, the quantity, the second item is always going to match, right? And this is going to make it easier for us to return this data to, like, each of this data to the client side, right? So it's going to have a list of names, a list of prices, a list of quantities. What else is it going to have? It's going to have the total, right? So uint 256, the sale total, right? So we're going to like multiply each item with each quantity and save the total, right? So this is our receipts. And then finally, for the admin, let's have 3 things. So an address of the admin ID, okay? We will have a boolean. There's different ways to like go about the admin, but I kind of like this way. So a boolean, whether this person is an admin, and then finally a boolean, whether this person is a super admin. And the reason why I do this is only a super admin can make or remove a normal admin, but any admin can approve a company. Get me? So yeah, and that's the reason like I separate the two. In other smart contracts, a super admin is basically just the owner, but we might want to add like more super admins, for example, like a person who is authorized to add or remove more admins, right? So that's going to be our 3 like object templates. Next, what we want to do is create mappings. Now, remember how I said each you can't directly return a structure, but what you can do is have a mapping which is going to be, let me actually do what, right? So I'm going to have a mapping, and inside each of this, it's going to be of a type address, and it's going to return a company, where we will make it private. No, just companies. Okay, so here's what I'm doing, right? This isn't an object. It's just a template for an object, right? It's not an object itself. But then in here, we're creating a mapping, and that basically looks like an array of multiple companies, of multiple objects, of multiple structures, right? So we're going to say, make the type be a company, okay? And return, and the name of this variable is going to be companies. So companies is going to look something like this. So companies is going to look something like this, where it's an array of multiple structures, right? And again, it doesn't exactly store it this way. It actually stores it this way. So I was actually wrong there, but it stores it this way, where basically since we're passing in the address, so for example, the company ID, which is 0 times something, 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 0 times the address is equal to this object of type structure. Another one might be like something else, for example, like 0 times another number, which is another company ID, is equal to this this object. So think of it in JavaScript, an object of objects, where like the key is the address of the company, and the value is the object, which is going to be of type structure, or type company, sorry, right? So that's the mapping. We will have one mapping for companies. We will have another mapping. So let me copy and paste this. Another mapping each for receipts. Okay, we'll call it receipts. And finally, another mapping for admins, right? Of type admin, and then inside of it, admins. Now remember, the company is going to be a type of address, but receipt is just going to be a random integer, and we will actually like put that integer as like 0, 1, 2, 3, something like that. So let's rename this to uint256 as it's just a normal integer, right? So we have three different mappings. Again, let me it's pretty self-explanatory, but let me just comment out first. So yeah, I don't know what to comment it, but yeah, I did explain it. So three different mappings, and then we will have the events now. Okay, so what are events? Events is basically once you have a function that's executed, you can throw an event. So if I go back to one contract that I created, okay, if we go into the overview, every time, for example, you issue receipts or an admin is added or an admin is removed, it throws some events, and this is on the blockchain, right? So it throws some events, and these are all the events that I've done for my my previous application, which is similar. But yeah, and you can also update it. You can also listen for events, which we're not going to do, but we can listen for events as well and do something with those events. But let's just create a couple events, okay? And again, events is something like, let me show you. So it's going to be a type event, okay? We can have, so for example, when a company goes for a company registration, so company registration, okay, it's going to take in three parameters. One is the company ID. So again, if we go back here, okay, let's take a look at this company registration, right? It did throw, so we have the hash of what that transaction was, the block number, but it did throw something, okay? It did throw the company ID. Yeah, where is it? Wait, what? I don't see it. Wait, if I click on that, I think this is a really old smart contract that I have. I mean, you have so many. It's one of this, but basically, it's going to throw a. Yeah, I don't know which one it was, but it's going to throw. Let me show you what it's going to throw. Right, so it's going to throw some kind of data with maybe a company name, the company ID, and the date it was registered. So let's actually create that, and then when we demo it, we'll see it. Okay, it's going to take in an address. We will make it indexed. A company ID and index basically just helps it when we want to index or like search or filter for different events. But company ID, okay, it's going to take the company ID, which is just the address of the company. Second, it's going to take in a string indexed and the company name, okay. And finally, oops, the last thing we will like throw is the uint256, which is indexed again, and the date, semicolon, and then I have an auto like the preacher extension, which just auto formats everything. But yeah, this is what the event looks like. Let's create another event for when a company is approved. So let me company approved, okay. Inside of it, let me actually do a few, right? So another event when a receipt is issued. Receipt is issued. Another event when an admin is added. So we want to keep track of everything, right? So an admin is added. Another event when admin is removed. I can't think of anything else, but let's start with these for now. Okay, so inside of the company approved, Okay, we will again do something similar, right? So we will have which company ID it is. We will say who the admin who approved it is. So again, address, index, okay, admin ID, and finally the dates. Okay, so when this event is fired, it's going to tell us who the company ID is. It's going to tell us who the admin who approved it is and when he approved it, the date. Okay, when a receipt is issued, again, let me just copy some of this. For which company it was issued for. The next is the receipts ID. So we will like show the company ID, the receipts ID, and maybe the date. You can do more, maybe the sale and stuff like that, but yeah, just the date. Remove the comma. Refactor. Okay, so when that receipt was issued, let me minimize some of this. For an admin added, we are going to say who the admin ID is. So let me copy one of these. Admin ID. So which admin was added and again maybe date. Okay, and maybe super admin as well. So boolean is super admin. So for an admin added, we will like say whether like what the admin's ID was, is here super admin or not, and the date. Okay, all this is not necessary, by the way. You can just ignore all this, but it's just like an event that we can keep track of. Like on the front end, whenever we fire an event, we can actually check it on the Thirdweb dashboard, for example, and see what events were fired. Okay, we said issued, admin added, and for the admin removed, let's just do the address and the date. Okay, so the admin added when he was removed and what date he was removed as well. Fine, cool. Now the next thing is modifiers. Okay, now modifiers, it will be better if I explain modifiers once I create the functions, but just for a quick idea, a modifier, yeah, I'll actually do it after I create the functions, but just quickly, a modifier is something that is required. So for example, let's say I have a function called add an admin, right? A function called add an admin. But for that function, I want to make sure only a super admin is the one who adds an admin. And if it's someone else, don't go to that function. And that's where modifiers come in, where I will like, for example, like create one modifier, and let's do that, right? So for example, we will say modifier only super admin. So this is okay. So only super admin. Okay, and this is going to check where for a function, if it is a super admin who's called the function, then run the function, or else return an error, right? And all this is we will like look at the syntax a lot more, but it takes in a require, and it require takes in two parameters, right? One is what you want it to be, and if it's not, so for example, if the first parameter, let's do it, right? So admins, okay, the message.sender, let me write this and then I'll explain it. That is super admin, or we will say if it's an owner as well, right? So if the message.sender is equal to owner, okay, and then if not, let's return an error, say caller is not a super admin. Okay, so let me just explain what I did. Admin, okay. All right. Wait, what? Admin body does not contain. Okay, so and I will again. I'll explain that as well. So what is this telling us exactly, right? A message.sender is basically a message is an inbuilt variable that's inside the contract that Solidity gives us, and it has a sender, right? So it tells us who called the function and what his ID is. There's, for example, message dot, I think it's value or amount that tells you how much amounts, for example, like if you want to make a transaction between one person to another, how much amount is sent. So message dot sender is who called the function and what his address is. So all we're checking is, remember, we're storing like an array of admins, right? Or an object of objects of admins. right? So we are checking whether that admin, and then we're looking for his address in that admin. So something like this, right? So let's say admins is equal to an object, and this is his 0 times something, his address, and then it has two things: is admin, maybe true, and then is super admin as maybe false, for example, right? It also has like the admin ID as well, ID, which we probably don't need since it's already there, but yeah, I just have it for, yeah, no reason really. But okay, so what we're doing is we're checking admins, and then we're looking for the address. So this is the address, and then we're seeing if the admin is a super admin or not. So if it's false, it's going to return this error. If it's true, it's going to continue in the function body, which we're going to see later, right? So this basically, from my understanding, is like just continue the function body under it, right? And yeah, so to check whether it's a super admin, the person who deployed the contract, which you still haven't like done this, but the person who deployed the contract is going to be a super admin technically as well, right? He's going to have every access, right? So again, that's the super admin function. Let me get rid of this. And since we've done one modifier, let's just do the other modifier where I will copy and paste this. Okay, only admin, and this time I'm just going to check same thing again. So only admin, if the admins, under the admins, if his is admin is true, or if the message.sender is the owner, which is a global function in here who like stores who the owner of the contract is, right? And again, once again, we will like pass in a value to this one. Okay, if any of this is true, continue the function body, or else return the error. So the error should be caller is not an admin. Let's minimize this, and inside the constructor, I want to do something as well. So remember, I did mention constructor is the first function that runs once you deploy the function, right? So inside the constructor, we're going to say the owner is equal to, remember, message.sender. Message is a global variable in here, message.sender, right? So we're setting this owner, the contract owner, to message.sender. I don't think we're actually using that anywhere else apart from the modifier, but yeah, it's always good to like store the contract owner just in case, like for the future, you want to use it, right? But the contract owner is the message.sender, so the guy who, or the person who actually deploys the contract, right? And finally, we're going to make that person an admin as well. So I'm just going to comment this out. Assign admin to the deployer. Okay, and in here, I'm going to say add admin. Actually, add admin, and it's going to take in two parameters. So we will have to create this function. But add admin, the first parameter is like who the address of the admin, sender, and whether the admin is a super admin or not. So initially, yeah, the deploy of the contract is always going to be a super admin, right? So I'm just going to say true, right? So let's actually start creating the functions. So let me minimize that, and then let's comment out some of the functions that we'll create, okay? Let me think. So one is going to be each function, like just how we commented everything up here. I'm just going to comment everything, and then we're going to fill those in. So functions for the company, for example, like registering a company or approving a company or getting a company or getting a list of all unapproved companies, for example, right? So company functions. Let's do receipts functions. So, oh God, receipt functions, and again, receipt functions is going to be maybe issuing a receipt, getting a receipt, getting receipts for a specific company, and yeah, I think those three. And then the next thing is going to be admin functions, and admin functions are adding an admin, removing an admin, getting the statistics of admins. So remember, like these statistics, which we're going to store inside a global variable as well here for admin. So the total companies registered, for example, the total receipts issued, the total number of admins, and maybe the total sales done by every company, which kind of is a pointless like data to get. Like we don't really want to see the total sales of every company, but yeah, just for the sake of filling some stuff up on the for each card, I'm just going to save that as well. So yeah, maybe last function to get like the statistics for all the admins. So let's actually start creating these functions. And since I did add modifiers for only admin and inside the constructor as well, I did the admin function. So let's like the add admin. So let's actually start with the admin functions. So I am going to start with the adding an admin. So simple syntax. So oops, function add add admin. Okay, similar to JavaScript, but add admin is going to take in a few parameters. Okay, it's going to take in the address of the admin. So address, so just temporary variable called address. It's going to be of type address. So the address of the admin, and then second, whether it's a super admin or not. So is, my typing is terrible today. So whether the admin is a super admin or not, right? We want this function to be able to, we should be able to call this function publicly, so outside this contract as well. So for example, from our front end, so we'll pass in a few parameters. So it's going to be a public function. And secondly, this is where the modifier comes in. This function is only going to be a super admin only. So only a super admin can add a normal admin. And I'm going to do one syntax first and then do another syntax. Okay, so, and then it's also going to return something. We don't really need to return anything, but we can say maybe like just return some address. Okay, now in here, I can do something like this. So require, okay, admins dot the address of the admin. So actually not that. Okay, so the admin's address dot is super admin. Okay, if not, return an error. So called whatever you want to call the error, right? So this is the same thing as the modifier. Maybe like we might have to use only super admin like in multiple places for multiple functions. So you don't want to write this everywhere, right? Like for every function. We're just going to make it one modifier, one global function, like one separate function, and we'll like pass this here. So for example, public, it can only be called by a super admin, and it's going to be the exact same thing. So it's going to require, it's going to run through this check, and then if it passes it, it's going to complete the remaining function, whatever we want to do inside the function, right? So we don't need to do the check over here. However, we'll actually do one check, right? So the other check is, what do we want to check? We want to check if this admin is already an admin, okay? If this admin is already an admin, we want to return an error saying admin already exists, right? So we will do one check. So one check is like if it's a super admin, if it's a super admin, it's going to run through this modifier. If it passes it, the second check is going to be if the admin is an admin. If it's true, then we'll say admin already exists, right? And by the way, this has to return something. So yeah, it has to return something. So the issue that you see is like restricted to view, and that basically means if we're not going to alter anything inside this contract, like alter any variable inside this contract, we have to change this variable to view, right? But if we are going to change something inside this contract, then we don't, like, it's not going to be a read-only. View is basically like read-only kind of thing, right? So we are actually going to alter some stuff. So what do you want to do? So we want to say a couple things, right? So admins, which is again this admin here, okay? The admin's address, okay, dot admin ID is equal to the address, okay? A couple things, three things maybe. Is admin is equal to true. Of course, if you're calling an admin function, it's always going to be an admin. Is super admin. This time we're going to set the value we get from here. So if it's true, it's going to set him as a super admin as well. If it's false, the admin is not going to be a super admin. Okay. Finally, it has to return something. So let me actually return address. Okay, just we don't need to actually return anything, but let me just return something. So I'm just going to return back the address that we get. Okay, and here's where the events comes in as well. So I'm going to fire an event, and to do that, I'm going to say emit event like that, And then what is the event tag? So it takes an admin ID, which is the address. It's going to actually, let me fix that. So super admin, it's going to emit like that, as well as the second parameter. And for the third parameter, that and to get the date, we can do block, which is another like inbuilt variable, the timestamp. Okay, so we can get the blockchain like timestamp, whatever the current timestamp is for the block, right? So emit a couple things. Now, I'm thinking that basically, remember, we can't. So when a person wants, wait, why is this an error? Oh, okay. The date is not an address. It's basically an integer. So uint 256. All right, cool. So there we go. So every time this function is called, it's going to emit. It's going to set the admin. It's going to emit an event with the admin, whether the admin is a super admin or not, and the timestamp. And now here's like what I was about to say earlier, right? So in Solidity, we can't return an object of objects. Remember how I explained a couple of times that this admins or companies or receipts are an object of objects, right? We can't actually return back an object of objects, or just like objects in general, but we can return back an array. So since this is an object of objects, I might want to also like store the admins as an array. So just in case on the front end side, if we want to get all the all the admins, we can easily call it, instead of like making multiple functions where like we find the length of how many admins they are in like some hack, or maybe like store a variable of the length and then like go loop through each length and get the admin. We're going to do it another route, right? Where basically just under the admins really, um, let me actually comment this out as well. Like I'm going from one page to the other, but I just want to comment this out. Mapping for companies object of object. Remember that, okay? Mapping for receipts, and finally mapping for admins. Okay, under the admins, I also want to do something, right? I want to have a global variable which is going to be an array of addresses. So address, an array of addresses. Okay, it's going to be private for now, so it's only going to be accessible inside this function. And then we're going to create a getter for this variable. So array of addresses, and let's just call admin keys. It's not really efficient since I'm storing the admin keys here, which I don't even have to store in the first place, and I'm also storing it here, but just follow along, okay? Um, Array of all admin addresses, okay? So that's going to be the array. And all I'm going to say is every time we add an admin as well, let's do something else. So admin keys dot push, or let me not call this keys, let me call this addresses. Addresses dot push, and what do you want to push? We just want to push the address of the admin. So this is our function to add an admin, right? Again, go to the checks, okay, the requirement. If any of these fail, return the error. If they all pass, just make the admin. So like update the object, update the array, and then finally return, not return, but like fire an event and return back the address. That's the add admin, right? Next, let's do remove admin. So let me minimize those. Function to add an admin. Let's do another one. Function to remove an admin. Okay, another one will be function to get all admins. Okay, and finally, function to get admin stats. So let's work on this function. This one's going to call, we're same, so function similar, so remove admin. Going to take in a few parameters, probably just of the admin that we want to remove. So just an address, type address. It's going to be public again, so because we want to access it from the front end. And again, only super admin. So only a super admin can add or remove an admin. Okay, only super admin. And then finally returns, it's going to return an address. Again, we don't really need to return anything, but let's just return something. Okay, now a couple checks. Okay, so if it is a super admin, so if a super admin is calling that, fine. If not, it's going to fail, right? But if it is a super admin calling that, let's do another check. Okay, requires something. We actually do two checks, right? The first check is whether that address, wait, okay, so we're going to say if the address is yourself, so message.sender. Okay, no, if it's not, okay, so let me think. So if address is, wait, so no, if it is, so okay, so here's what it is, right? So if the address we get from the parameter is yourself, is your own address, okay, so we're going to say you can't do that, you can't remove yourself. Okay, can't remove yourself. Okay, fine. So if the address that if we're calling the function, okay, and then telling it to remove this address, the parameter we give it, but if that address is being called by the person who called the function, you can't remove yourself. Another check is going to be if it's not an admin, right? So for example, again, admins, address dot is admin. So we're going to check whether, remember the first part is if, the second part is if this doesn't pass, throw the error, right? So if this person is an admin, cool, continue the function. If not, then admin is or does not exist, right? So we have to make sure whether the person calling this function is a super admin first, and then the next check is if it is the same person, you can't remove yourself. Wait, this actually has to be not. Sorry, my bad. So remember, if this is true, continue the function. If not, throw this error, right? So we have to make sure the address is not the message sender. If it is, then like you cannot remove yourself. Finally, we have to make sure the admin is an admin. If not, the admin does not exist. Return back that error. But if this is true, let's just remove the admin, right? All right, so to remove the admin, we want to remove the admin from the object of our objects, and also like get rid of the admin from two places, right? From the object of objects and from the addresses, so the array of addresses. So let's do that. Okay, so firstly, let's get rid of it from the object. Remove from admin's object, and then second, remove from admin addresses array. All right, the first and simple, just do this. Delete him from the, just delete that address, right? So address, remember it's an object of objects where the key is the address. So all we're going to do is delete the address. Oh wait, delete the admin's address. Okay, I think that should not give us an error. Yeah, so under this addresses, under this admin, sorry, where is it? Under these admins, just get rid of the entire object which has that address, right? So get rid of the object address. But for the array side, it's slightly different, okay? Where basically we want to loop through the arrays, and then once we find that admin, we get rid of that admin. So to do that, we say for uint 256 I is equal to 0, I is less than admin addresses dot length, just like every other language, so don't need to explain this really, I plus plus. Okay, and in there, let's say so if the admin addresses I is equal to address, let's remove that admin. Now, to remove it's a bit different, right? Like not in JavaScript, you can just like tell it to remove one, maybe to shift, unshift something. We can just say to remove. But in Solidity, you can't just remove an element from in the middle of an array and just make. Let me do it in Paint, right? Let's say we have this array, right? Let's say we have this array, okay, and then we have multiple items inside the array, okay. Let's say we have, just to fill this up, 5 items inside the array. And now, if I want to remove the second item, what will happen is we will once I get rid of it, we will still have the same size array, but then the second item will be nothing. It will be like 0, like undefined or null, right? There will be nothing, but we'll still have the remaining. But what we want to do is get rid of this item in a way that now you only have 4 elements in an array. But to get rid of elements in an array, you can only get rid of either the first elements or the last elements inside the array in Solidity. You can't get rid of something in the middle. So the logic we're going to use is make the last element. So we don't need, okay, so make the last element this, okay, so move the last element to the middle, like duplicate it, and then get rid of the last element. So that way, the last element will shift to the middle, to the second element, but now we'll get rid of the last element. You can just like delete either the first or the last, right? So now we'll have 4 remaining and not 5 with an undefined object or an undefined element inside the array. So to do that, we are going to say admin keys I is equal to, so for example, let's say we're on the second element and this passes, we're going to make the second element the last element. Sorry, it's not admin keys, we renamed it to admin addresses. Okay, is equal to admin addresses, but now this time we want to get the length. Actually, let me do something else, right? uint 256 length is equal to dot length. Okay, so now I can just do that. -1. Okay, just because, like, remember, in arrays start from element 0, right? So if the length of the array is 5, we want to get element 4 because it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the 5th element technically. So -1, so we're making that second element as the last element, and then we're just getting rid of the last element. So admin addresses, so admin addresses dot pop, and that just gets rid of the last element and just break it so we don't go loop through every other thing once we've already done this, right? So yeah, step 1, pass the checks. Step 2, remove that admin from the object. Step 3, remove the admin from the array. And finally, let's just emit the event. So emit admin removed. This filled it up automatically. So address and the date is block dot timestamp. Again, this is an error. I think I'll have to fix it up there. And just to finish the function, let's just return back the address. All right, let me fix that first of all. Admin remove, and this is a uint256. Right, a date is not of a type address; it's a type integer. So yeah, slightly complicated, but if you understand this, we're going to use it in multiple places, I think. So it should be fairly simple to understand next. But okay, so remove admin. Finally, the third function is to get all the admins, right? So function get all, or just get admins, okay, in there. We don't need to pass in any parameters since we just want to return everything, and we won't alter any value as well. So remember, for the first function, we're altering the admins and the admin keys or the admin addresses. Same thing for the second one, but for this one, we're not altering anything inside the contract. So this time it's going to be a public, but it's also going to be a view, right? Since we're only viewing it, right? And then this returns, what does it return? It returns a type admin, right? It returns a type admin this time. Remember, you can return a type integer, a type string, a type boolean, a type array, but this time we're returning a type admin. So it's going to return an object, each with this stuff, but then we want to return an array of those objects, not just one object, but an array of all objects, and we also have to specify where it comes from, so it comes from the memory, right? Going back in there, let's get that specific admin. So to get that specific admin, we're going to say from type that admin. Actually, no, we don't need to get any admin. Sorry, my bad. What am I saying? So again, we have to create an empty array. Remember, you can't just return structures directly, right? You can't return structures directly in Solidity. So you have to create an array where you store the structures inside that array and then return it to the user, right? So store it in the memory. Just call it result is equal to new admin. Remember, you can have an array of type anything. This time I'm going to have an array of type admins. Sorry, of type admin, which is that structure. And then you have to give it the length, right? So I'm just going to say admin addresses dot length, and I'm going to do the same thing again since we will use this a couple of times. So just do that here. Okay, and then copy that. So what we're doing right now is creating an empty array. You have to give it a length inside the array. So we're going to say the length is going to be the length of the admin addresses, right? And then create the same loop again. So let's just copy that same thing again. Copy the same thing again. Paste it in there. But this time, instead, for I until length, we are just going to return. Let's just do a check. But we don't, again, it's every check is going to pass, so you don't even have to do this. But let's just do this, right? So just to show you how we can access individual items, right? Admin addresses I dot is admin. Okay, technically it's going to pass this every time. And then if it's true, we're just going to say result I is equal to admins admin addresses I. And let me explain what I did now. Is admin is, oh, okay. Okay, that should fix it. So let me explain what, and then wait, finally let's just return it, right? So return the results. Cool. So what we're doing first is whenever we call the getAdmins function, okay, we're just getting the length of the admin addresses. Just because we're using it in multiple places, I don't want to like call this here and there. So get the length, and then we're creating an empty array of this many empty items, and then we're filling in each of those items. So we're looping through the each admin address. We're getting their address, and then we're finding them inside the admins. Remember, the admins is an object, right? Again, if I just illustrate it, it's going to be something like this. So 0 times something, something, something. And then that object is going to have an element called is admin, true, false, is super admin, like true, false, and so on. So we're getting that element. This is going to return us the address. We're searching the address inside the admin. We're getting it from the admins. And then we're just saying if it's true, technically it's always going to be true because everyone inside the admin is always true, right? But then if that is true, return back as an append or add this item to the results, and finally return the results. So that's all for the get admins. And then for the get admin stats, I will actually do this in the end. So let me just do something. Reminder complete get admin stats, just because we'll need some data from the companies, from the receipts, and that's when we'll return it. So I'll just do this later. Okay, so we're almost done with the admin side. Let's continue with the company side now. So the company side, remember, we're going to be able to register a company. We can approve a company. We can get a company and a list of unapproved companies. So let's start with the first one. Okay, so function register company. In there, it's going to take a couple parameters, and then it's going to be a publicly. You can call this function publicly. Return something as well. Return something. Maybe just return an address. I just like to return, like, even though you don't need to return anything, I just like to return it. But returns an address, and then it's going to take in two things, right? So once you want to register a company on the client side, on the user side, okay, we will allow them to give in a company name. So it's going to be a string memory. So we want to store the string somewhere in the memory. You need to do this for strings, by the way, not for everything else, but yeah. Company name, and then string memory, company address, okay, which is going to be maybe the physical location, something like ABC Drive, Canada, or something like that, right? So it's going to take two things: company name, company address. Okay, in here we are going to get that company first, right? So we're going to see if that company exists. So we're going to try and find that company. So inside the object of objects, so this company is right here. Okay, we're going to see if that company is in there. So let's do this. So type company. Okay, get it from the storage. Storage. Let's call this variable just basic company is equal to companies, and then let's get the message.sender. Remember, a company can register themselves. Each MetaMask address is their own company. It is a company. So it's going to be a message.sender. Okay, so we're finding that companies inside the message.sender, and then we're going to say something, right? So if so if require, okay, we're going to say something. If the company is not approved, actually, wait. So we actually want two things, right? So we're going to say company.company ID and, so let me write this down first. And company already registered, please wait for approval. Okay, so let me explain this again. Remember, instead of doing this, is not equal to message.sender. Okay, that doesn't return error. Okay, so what I'm doing is we are checking, right? So when someone wants to register a new company, we have to check whether, so we're trying to fetch this company from the companies, right? Initially, it should not have any value, right? So this company should not have a company ID. It should not have, probably, it shouldn't have any data, right? It should be empty. So we're checking if the company ID is not message.sender. So that, because we have to do that, because if it is a message.sender, that means the company already exists, right? And it'll be good to like split those into two separate ones. So let me actually do that. Wait, get rid of that one. And then in the first one, I want to get rid of that one. All right, so company already registered. Cool. So what we're doing is, for the first check, if the company ID is not equal to message.sender, we want it to pass. If it is equal to message.sender, we want to throw an error saying company already registered. For the second one, we want to do the similar thing where, like, we want to check if it is not approved. If it is already approved, then we want to say company already registered, please wait for approval, right? So those two checks. Finally, if both of those passes, we want to like just register the company. So all we're going to say is company, oops, very simple. So company dot company ID is equal to message dot sender. We're going to say company dot company name is equal to this company name. And finally, company dot company address is equal to show me suggestions. It didn't. Okay, company address. Oops, company address. All right. So all we're going to do is since let's open this company, right? takes in a couple things. It takes in the company ID, it takes in the company name, it takes in the company address. Initially, by default, it's not going to be approved, so it's not going to have any of this. It's not going to have any of this actually, so we don't need to pass in any of this really, because we don't have any total sales for now. We don't have any receipts for now. It's not approved yet. So the only thing we need to give it is the company ID, and then the company name and the company address, right? So all we're doing is setting the company ID to the message.sender, setting the company name to the company name, and setting the owner to the company, sorry, the address to the company address that we get from the parameters. Finally, I want to do something again. So remember, since on the front end we can get a list of all admins, I also want to be able to get a list of all unapproved companies, right? Just so we don't have to loop through every single company and then find an unapproved company and then return those. That's going to be a lot of like loops, right? Think about it. If you have like 1,000 companies and only 5 of them are not approved, you don't want to loop through 1,000 companies to find the 5. We're just going to create another variable like that that's going to be unapproved companies, and it's just going to be a list of companies, right? So let me copy and paste that. And while we're there, I'm going to add a few more variables that we want to do some tracking as well for the front end. Let's go to companies. So for example, actually let's go to admin for like the front end. So we want to see how many total companies there are, how many total receipts have been issued, how many total admins. So we're just going to keep a counter of each of those inside our contract as well, just so we don't have to loop through everything and find the length. We already just have the length and we can just return those, right? So the second one is going to be unapproved companies. So it's just going to be a list of unapproved companies. Okay. The third one is going to be actually unapproved companies. The third one is just going to be a couple counters really. So let me just say counters. Okay. So one counter is going to be uint 256. All of these are private really. I don't think for this it really matters, but yeah, private. We're going to have the total receipt counter, receipts counter. We will have. Let me copy and paste this a couple of times, right? So we'll count how many receipts have been issued. We'll count how many companies have been like created, right? And then finally, maybe like the total sales of every company. Again, like this is going to be this right here. So the total sales of every company, right? And this is just for an example, like how you can actually like track data. Total sales. Okay. So each of these are going to be. Let me keep track. Yeah, we're not going to just counter for all receipts, and then counter for all companies, counter for total sales by every company, right? So these are the 3 different counters, and we're only going to append this number. So initially it's going to be 0. We're only going to append it to 1 once the company has been approved, because many people can like just register like stupid companies, right? Like a troll company, but only once it's approved by an admin is when we actually want to increase this counter. So these are just a couple of counters, but let's actually go back to the function we're working with, which is right there. And then once we've created a company, let's save this to unapproved companies.push, and then that's the address, right? So message.sender. And then let's also like emit an event, emit company registration event. Oops. So it takes the company ID, which is the msg.sender. It takes the company name, which is the company name, and then the block.timestamp. Cool. I hope no errors this time. Yep, no errors. And let's just return back the message.sender. Right. So just to recap, we're creating an empty company, right, of type company, which is our object. So we're creating an empty company of this type, right? Initially, none of these values will have anything. We're checking whether the company has a company ID. If it does, that means throw this error. If it doesn't, continue the function. Again, we're checking whether the company is approved, as in it's not approved. If it's not, then continue the function. If it's false, then we can say company is already registered. Please wait for approval. Don't even know if we need the second one really. Yeah, let's just leave it there for now. Actually, we do need it really to differentiate the two. But finally, we just like update the company information, the ID, the name, the address. By default, it's always going to be an unapproved company, so we're pushing it to the unapproved companies. And then finally, emitting the event and returning the message.sender. So that should be it. And then the second function is going to be getting a company this time, right? Actually, let's what do we do first? Yeah, let's just do getting a company, and then we'll do approving a company. So function, okay. So let me function to register a new company. Function to what are we doing now? Function to get a company. So get a company. Okay. Okay, so let's do function get company. Okay, all it's going to take is the address, the ID of the company, so which company we want to get, and then it should be a public function. It should be a view only since we're just returning the company, and then it returns something, and it just returns the company from memory. Okay, let's return, and then let's get that company. So it's going to be very similar to, it's going to be exactly the same as this again. So we're getting that company, but this time, remember, if it's a view only function, you're not passing a transaction to the function, so you don't actually get the message.sender. By default, the message.sender is going to be something like 0 times 0, 0, 0, 0, something like that. That means like it does not actually have a sender. Unless you're sending it some transaction or gas fees, that's the only time you get a message.sender, right? So instead of message.sender, we're doing a company ID. Then we're getting that company ID. And then finally, we'll just return company. That's, yeah, pretty simple. No errors, good. All right, so that's all. Let's create a function. Function to approve a company. Cool. So how are we going to approve a company? Here's what I'm thinking, right? Similar to like removing admin, we will need this similar loop as well to like get rid of it from the unapproved companies. So we'll copy and paste it later, but let's actually create this function first. So function approve company. Okay, we want to approve a company. What do we want? We want an address, and then company ID, and then this time it's going to be again a public function like always. It's only going to be callable by an admin, right? So any admin can approve a company. Every user cannot approve a company, right? Only an admin can approve a company. So any admin can approve a company. Returns. What do you want to return? Maybe just let's return true or false, right? So returns bool, whether it's done or not. Then in there, you want to get the company again. So I still have it copied, so paste it. So we're getting the company or finding the company from the companies, okay, with this company ID. Next thing we want to do is we want to see whether the company is approved or not. So require, and then if the what do we want? We want the company not to be approved, right? Okay, to continue the function. If it is already approved, company already, I don't know why, but the require is always confusing for me, but company already approved. So let me say this out loud. So we want the company to not be approved in order to continue. If it is approved, then we return back an error saying company already approved. Okay. Wait. So inside the get companies, no, inside the register company, we want to make sure it's not already approved to continue. Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay. No, wait. Yeah, okay, no, never mind. That's correct. That's correct. Okay, so going back here, actually, let's just do the returns to get rid of return true, just to get rid of this underline error. Okay. It can no. Okay, we don't want it to be a view only. So what do we want it to? What do we want now? Okay. So I want to update some of the stuff. So now, remember, when we register a company, we only do company ID. We only like update these three things, right? We still have to update some of the other stuff, like for example, if it's approved, true or false, who it's approved by, and when it was approved, right? So let's minimize some of this and go back there. So we're going to say company dot approved. This time it's going to be true. Okay, company dot approved by. Okay, so this is going to be called by an admin, and yeah, we'll have to make a guess transaction for that. So we will get the message.sender. So it's approved by the message.sender. Okay, and then what else? And then finally the approval date. So company dot approval date is going to be the block dot timestamp. And so right now we updated that. We want to get rid of it from the unapproved companies array. So to do that, let me just copy that function. Actually, I have this function ready. So I'm going to pause it, type it, and then like explain it. Okay, so here it is, right? So unapproved companies.length. So let me move that away as well. Uint 256 length is equal to that. Okay, and then all right. So what am I doing again? I'm just looping through like the companies array. Okay, the unapproved companies array. And then once that company matches the company ID, all we're going to do is similar to like what I explained earlier in Paint, replace that company to like whichever element it is in, and then like pop it. So remove the last element. It's similar to like what we did in admin side as well. And then once that's done, just break it so we don't loop through every other company as well. And then I'm going to increase this counter as well. So remember we have the company's counter. Let's just increase it. So once a company is approved, let's just increase the counter plus plus. That just equals to like added by 1. And then let's emit an event. The event is going to be a company is approved. This time the company ID is going to be company ID. The admin ID is going to be the message.sender, and the date is going to be block.timestamp. Oops. All right, no errors. Awesome. So we've done like the approved company function as well. I think we're like 70% done. We only have like receipts left, maybe one more function left, maybe two more functions left. But like, imagine creating a 300 line smart contract in like an hour and a half. Like that's crazy actually. So if you're like here, good stuff, bro. Fine. What other function do we need? We need another function to like just get all we did individual company, we did register company, we did approved company, and then just for the front end, we need a list of all unapproved companies as well, right? To fill it in here. So let's go back here. This is the unapproved companies. Similar to how we did like get all admins, we're going to do get all unapproved companies as well. Right? So going back down. Function to get all unapproved companies. Okay. Function. I think there's still a couple more functions as well that we might need. We'll get there. We'll get there. So function get unapproved companies. We don't need anything there. It's going to be a view, public view, since we're not altering anything, we're just getting some data. Returns, it's going to return something, so it's going to return a list of company Get it from the memory. Memory. Okay. We are going to create this results. All right. So in here, similar to before, let's do the lamp. I think I just need to copy this as well. I'll just copy that. Similar to get admins. So on approved companies.length. Okay. And then, so it's going to be a type company. So we're going to return an array of type company. Result is equal to company and an empty array type length. Okay. We're going to loop through all the companies, unapproved companies actually. And then we're going to say companies. Let me just replace this here as well. Companies, and then get over this and that. I think just that. Okay, I think that makes sense. Why is there an error? Let me fix the error first. Wait, no, we don't need an if really. Okay, so here's what we're doing, right? We're creating an empty array, and then we're just looping through all the unapproved companies, and then for every element inside the array, we're just populating it with the company structure, right? So companies, and then we're getting the unapproved, which is the address, right? Unapproved companies.I is the address, and we're just getting that address and getting the company, and appending it to here and returning it. You can just do like results.push this, or you can do it this way as well. But yeah, return the results, and I think that should be all for like getting unapproved companies. Let's minimize that. I think we're done for all the company functions. Let's just complete all the receipts functions now. So under the receipts, we need probably like 3 functions. We want to be able to issue a receipt, we want to be able to get a receipt, and then we want to be able to just get all the receipts of a company, right? So when we go here, okay, in here, we want to be able to get all the receipts of a company, right? So let's do that. So where are we? Under the receipt function, first we'll need a function to issue a receipt, and then we'll need a function to get a receipt, and then finally we'll need a function to get all company receipts. Cool. Let's do that one by one. So function issue receipt, it's going to take in a few parameters. It's going to be a public function as well. So let's do public. 1 second. Let me think. So public, it's going to return something. Returns. It's going to return something. Let's just do this, and we're going to see what it's going to return. Again, I don't think we can just return a boolean as well. Just say bool. We'll see what we want to return. We'll see what we want to return. But under the issue receipt, it's going to take a couple things, right? It's going to take string of item names. So memory names. Remember how I talked about it in at the start of the video? We're going to store it this way. So item names, item prices, item quantities, right? In 3 separate arrays. But they should be of equal length. So we're going to do a require for that, okay? String memory names, okay? You're going to say uint 256 of memory prices, uint 256 memory quantities memory quantities. Okay, why is there an error? Oh god, no. Okay, that should. Okay, so okay, so prices, names, prices, quantities. Now I do want to mention one thing, and I don't want to leave this out of the video because I just came across this bug right now, like just before recording this video, where basically, remember, an integer is type integer, right? So it can't be decimals, right? It's a type integer, and it's just positive integers if I'm not mistaken. So it's a type integer. Now we don't have floats. We don't have type floats in Solidity. So when I Googled it quickly, Solidity does not support decimal places, which is kind of like weird, and it's something that I have to learn about. But I did come across type uFixed. Now I still haven't tried it, so I think it's uFixed 256. I don't remember what times. Was it 16? No, 18. I think it's that, but again, I haven't like tested it, so I'm not going to do that. But in order to support decimals, only the new version of Solidity supports this, but the traditional way to do that was converts like any decimal you get to way. So if you don't know about way, it's like if I go Etherscan, uh, wait, or wait, Ether to way. Something like that. Okay, so let's say we want like 0.3 ether, right? That's going to be 3,000, I don't know, trillion or whatever this number is way. Okay, so this is how you convert. Let's say you want to give it like a price of like $5.5. We're going to do 5.5, but technically you convert it to way, and then you store that integer. So I'm not going to do that for this video, but that's the workaround like doing that, right? So right now the prices and the quantities, we're going to give it as a decimal, sorry, as a whole number and not a decimal. So let's actually do that, right? So issuing a receipt. Let me think. So remember, okay, so I'm just thinking out loud, right? A company, a MetaMask address is a company, right? And they can issue receipts for themselves, right? They can't issue a receipt for a sub company. They can issue receipts for themselves. So we're going to, okay, so company storage, get it from the storage. Company storage. Oops. Company is equal to companies. Oh God. Companies message.sender. Okay, so now, okay, and then just at the end, I'm just going to do return true. This shouldn't be capital as well. Okay, so now I'm just going to find the company. So if a person is issuing a receipt, I want to get his or her company, right? And I'm going to do it the same way. So like the message.sender is their company ID actually, and we're getting it from the companies. And now remember, they can only issue receipts if the company is approved. If it's not approved, let's return an error. So require, okay, we require the company to be approved. Approved. If it's not, then company not approved error. Okay, if it's not, we can't issue a receipt unless the company is approved. Okay, another requirement we need to do this is like, just to be safe, we have to check. We can't just trust the customer, right? So we have to check, or the client, sorry, we have to check that these are of equal lengths, right? So we have to do another require. Okay, names.length is equal to prices.length, and also the names.length is equal to quantities.length, right? So that way all of these arrays will be the same thing. Quantities.length, and then if it's not, then data arrays provided are not of equal length. Oops, oh God, of equal length. So we have like two checks. No, we don't have any errors till now. So finally, we just want to issue the receipts. And now, remember the receipt ID, I actually have to, it's just going to be the counter, for example. Like the first receipt that's ever going to be issued is going to be 0. The next receipt ID is going to be 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? So it's just going to be the counter is going to be the ID. So let's actually do that. So we're going to say uint 256. So receipt ID is equal to, but we're going to do something now, right? And I don't know. I think this is also in in JavaScript, but you can do something like this, right? So receipt plus 1, right? So technically, if like initially this receipt ID is 5, this is going to be 6, right? Because it's going to be receipt equals receipt plus 1. And then later, once you've issued the receipt, you can do receipt plus that, right? But you can also do it in this way. Why is this an error? Oh, it's just unused. You can also do it this way, where for you can add the plus plus in the start and not the end, where what this means is let's increase the element, let's increase append this by 1. So not append, but like increment this by 1, and then we get the receipt ID, right? So before we get the receipt counter, let's increment the value by 1, and then we get the receipt counter. So initially, if this value was 0, it's going to change it to 1, and then it's going to set this as 1. So it's just kind of like something that I learned recently. So I don't know if it's there in JavaScript or not. But yeah, so now we have that. Let's create the receipt, right? So we're going to say receipt storage. And I know sometimes I use storage, sometimes I use memory. It's I I think I know the difference, but I don't really know the difference. But it's similar to, for example, like think of a computer RAM, right? One is like you're storing it in the RAM, and one you're storing it in like your memory, and then like erasing it. But I actually have to like learn more about it, like get in depth of like the mechanics of it. So um yeah. So receipt storage receipts is equal to, and remember, I'm just new to like smart contracts as well. It's been like what, 2 weeks maximum that I've been learning smart contracts. So wait, receipts, and then get the receipt ID. So initially it's not going to be anything, right? But now what we want to do is receipt dot company ID is equal to, which is just msg.sender, and I'm going to fill in the rest. Sorry, it's receipts here. Okay, I'm going to fill in the rest, pause the video, and then come back. All right, so receipt.company ID is equal to that. Receipt.selldate is equal to block.timestamp. Receipt.names, there's an error. So let me just go up. It's receipt. It should be item names and not item name, right? So yeah, the item names is equal to the names that we get from here. Prices are going to be the prices that we get from here. Quantities are going to be the quantities that we get from here. And we also want to calculate the total. So to calculate the total, I'm just going to do this, but let's actually do this first, right? So let me go back down. Let me comment, create the receipt, calculate the sell total. Now in here, let's calculate it, right? So UN 256, sell amount is equal to 0 at first, okay? And then just loop through it. So for, let me just copy the loop from before. Okay, so start with 0, get the length of like all the, since they're equal lengths, you can get really any, right? So get the length of like the prices array, and then go till the end. So if there are 2 items, it's going to loop like twice. And then all we're going to do is like say sell amount plus equal to, we want to do the prices times the quantity. So if like the price is $100 per item and there's 2 quantities, so that's going to be $200, right? So it's simply going to be prices I times quantities I. Simply that. Don't forget your semicolon and that. So like it starts from 0, and then just like add the amount for like all the total for each item, right? Yeah, and then you get the sell amounts. And then remember, like since we're also storing like the total sales for like our statistics like on the front end later for the stats, but let's just increment that as well. We can also increment the receipts count. The receipts count is actually incremented, so we don't need to do this. And then also going back up under the company, remember we have like the total sales for each company and the receipts IDs for each company, right? So let's do that. Okay, so create the receipt, update the company cell, and update stats. Okay, so update stats will just be like the total sales plus equals to the sell amounts over here, right? The total sell amount for each receipt. again semicolon, and then for the company we can just do company. Since we're already getting the company up here, we can just do company dot total sales plus equal to sale amount again. And that's, so this is the global, right, for every company, all the sales, like this total sales, and this total sales is just like for the company itself. And then what else? Oh, the receipt IDs. So company dot receipt IDs, and what we're going to do is push. It's just going to store an array of like just receipt IDs. All right. Finally, let's just emit, right? Emit. So we just want receipt issued. The company ID is going to be the message dot sender. The receipt ID is the receipt ID, which we have. The date is going to be log.time stamp. No errors. Okay, we do have an error. Okay, so receipt issued. Oh god. So both of these are uint 256. Cool. That shouldn't give us an error down there anymore. Yep, no errors in the function. We're good. So let's minimize this function. Let's continue with the next one. Get a receipt is similar to getting a company. So let's copy that. Paste it here. Say get receipt. Get receipt. Receipt ID. And then it returns. Actually, let's actually return two things, right? So let's return the receipt. But remember, the receipt only has the ID of the company. It doesn't have the name of the company. So let's also return the name of the company. So string. So we're returning two things. Memory, and then company name. Okay, so it's going to return two things. Oops, company name. So we want to get the, what do you want to get? We want to get the receipt first, right? So receipt first, and then get it from the receipts, and then the receipt ID. And then remember, the receipt has a company ID, right? So each receipt has a company ID. And from the company ID, we can match it to this company ID and return the whole company. So company ID. And we don't want to return the whole company, but like receipt.company ID. Why is this an error? Oh, again, it's uint. Remember, the receipt ID is not a 256. Your receipt ID is a type of integer, right? And it's not a type of address. There you go. And we can return two things. So first, we can return the entire receipt, and secondly, we can just return company dot company name. No errors. There we go. So we can get a receipt. Finally, get all receipts for a company, and that's going to be like, again, similar to like getting all unapproved companies or getting all admins, and we can just do that again. So let's create a function. Function get company receipts. We will need the company ID, so this time it's going to be an address. Company ID. Okay, it's going to be a view only, so public view. Since we just want to return some data, view returns. It's just going to return a list of. The space matters really. No, it doesn't matter. A list of receipts. So receipts from the memory. Okay, so let's get the company. Company storage. Company is equal to companies. The company ID. Okay, and then I'll copy and paste from the previous function and then pause the video and come back. All right, simple enough. So create an empty array. The type is, let me uint 256 length is equal to that. Create an empty array of that length, and then loop through those number of items inside the receipt. Okay, so where are we? All right, yeah, so the company stores receipt IDs, right? It stores like a list of all receipts, just the IDs, not all the data, just the IDs, right? Just the receipt ID. And then what we're doing is for every receipt inside those companies' receipts, okay, we want to get the actual receipt from the receipts and get the actual receipts from the receipts. And then just append it to this temporary variable that we created, the results, and return the results. It's similar to like every other like loop that we did till now. But yeah, I think that should be it. Oh no, one more function to complete it to do, right? So get admin stats. So let's do that. So function, remember for the company stats, okay, for the company stats, all of this data is already inside the company, right? It's already inside this company, right? So we don't need to like store it somewhere else. Like we already have the company name, the address, the total receipts, the total sales, and like the length of these receipts. So we already have all of this data. But for the admin, we are storing these on global variables, right? So let's just return each of those global variables. So function get admin stats. Let's actually get something. So we don't need any parameters. Again, it's going to be a public view, and it returns something. It returns a couple things. So it returns 4 elements. So uint256. I'm going to name this in a bit. So okay, so for uint256, let's just actually name this. So I'm going to say admin total companies, which is the name of which variable. Admin total receipts this times. And then admin total admins. I'm just adding an admin at the first just because we already have some, I don't know, maybe we have total companies as a variable already, total receipts as a variable already. So just like a unique name. I can't think of anything better. And finally, admin total sales. So we created like we're returning 4 different stuff, right? To fill in like these 4 different stuff. Okay, total sales. And then inside the function, inside the function, I just want to return the company's counter. We want to return the receipts counter. Want to return the admin addresses dot length, right? And then we want to return the total sales. And I already have an error. Oh, wait, what? Or do I need a semicolon? Oh, I didn't know you need a semicolon there. Okay, cool. So just that. Again, if I split this to right, remember we have like the receipts counter, we have the company's counter, we have an addresses of all admin addresses, we're just getting the length. Then we also have the total sales that we're like saving in a public variable. So these 3 and the length of this. And that's the admin stats. So yeah, just in about 1 hour 40 minutes we created, how long was this? A 338 line smart contract, which is insane. But yeah, we have the smart contract. Let's actually like try and deploy it. Let me see if we have everything. So let's just walk through everything one more time, right? And I'm going to compare this with the smart contract that I've already written. So bear with me 1 second. All right. So we start off with like creating 3 structs for the company, for the receipts, for the admin. And remember, this is just a template for like the object that we need, right? We have the mappings. We have the mappings for like we're storing a list of all companies in here, all receipts or admins. Okay, and then we're creating some individual arrays. So just like a list of admin IDs. Remember, this is object of objects, right? So we just need a list of all admin IDs. Okay, And then just a list of all unapproved companies. So we get it on the front end and we don't have to look through every single company to see which one's unapproved. We have some counters that we need for the stats, and then we just created some events. It's just a good practice to have events. If you don't want them, you don't need to have them. Modifiers. So yeah, modifiers again, just like an add-on to the function to like have some require, right, to do some checks, and then we're actually creating the function. So when you start from the first function, we're just setting the owner as this contract as the one who created the function, who deployed the function, and then we're making them an admin as well, and a super admin as well. Register company, right? So the company functions, we go on registering the company. We can get an individual company. We can approve a company that's done only by an admin. And finally, we can get a list of all unapproved companies. For receipts, we can issue receipts. We can get a receipt. We can get, so this is like get a receipt based on a receipt ID. It can be for any company. Over here, I don't even know if we're using this on the front end, by the way. Yeah, we're probably not. But yeah, maybe we can edit. But yeah, we have like get every company receipts, which is like this one right there. It gets every company receipts. And then for the admin, we can add an admin, we can remove an admin. Remember, this can only be done by super admin. And then we can get a list of all admins, and we can get those admin stats that we can populate on our dashboard. So yeah, in like an hour, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, we created the entire smart contract, and let's actually deploy it. So let me save this. Let me open the terminal. How do you do it? Wait, I think it's just npm run deploy. Yeah, just npm run deploy. So to deploy, I'm not really sure if we will need the API key, but let me try it, right? So npm run deploy. No wait, we have to go into cd web3, then npm run deploy. What am I doing? Run deploy. I think for the settings, we might have to give it, so for the hardhat config, we might have to give it the default network, but I'm not sure if that's a must though. Like I saw it in one of the tutorials I was watching on when I was learning Web3, but I couldn't find it on the docs as a necessity, so I'm just going to try it right now. But compiling project. Okay, it found one receipts, which is the receipts under contracts. If you have multiple contracts, it's going to ask you to choose which one you want to deploy. So if there's only one, it's going to do that by default. Let's go. I don't think there's any errors, or else we would get an error like in the start. So we're good. And by the way, what I did right now was I had coded the entire contract at once, which isn't a good idea. When I was writing this contract on my own initially, I was using Truffle. No wait, not Truffle. Remix, Remix IDE. And here is like test driven as well. So I'd highly recommend you doing it on Remix. If you don't get any errors, then do it there. So under contracts, receipts, like I have like a basic contract, for example, just once you save it, auto compiles it. You'll see a check mark here. And then on your tests, you can just like write a test as well. So for example, like initially I created two variables, a receipts and then a deployer and a buyer as well. So deployer is like the person who actually deploys the contract, and a buyer is like another user, like someone who didn't deploy the contract, like just another random user, right? So before each test, I get the deployer and the buyer. You can get like buyer, I think there's buyer 1, buyer 2, buyer 3. You can get as many like new like addresses as you want from Ethers. It uses the Ethers library. And then, yeah, it gets the deployer buyer. We just set the deployer as well. So we set the deployer to like the deployer we get from here and the buyer to the buyer we get from here. And then we deploy the contract. And this is how we deploy the contract. Once we deploy the contract, we get the ABI, which is like a contract template. We save it inside the contract. So that we do that before every test. And then for each test, we make a transaction. So for example, let's say I want to get the list of all admins. I can just make it like, yeah, so this was a demo of a thing that I did, but yeah, I can just get a transaction. I can get admins, and then I just console logged it. And then I did like all the admin dot, so the address should be equal to the transaction. I don't even know if this passes or not, but this is how I made the the test. But let's just actually go back um to there, and yeah, it looks like it's deployed. Open. Open. I hope the gas fees aren't insanely high. Like yesterday, it was 0.17 or something like that just to deploy. But damn, admin already exists. We got an error, so let's try and fix that. All right, so the admin already exists comes from like the add admin. Of course, we got that error because inside the constructor, which is the function. Remember, every other function only runs once we call it, right? But inside the construction, the function that runs by default at first, we're calling the add admin. And inside the add admin, have a look at this. We want there to not be an admin. If there is no admin, then continue this. If there is an admin, then throw this error. That's why I mentioned earlier, like this always confuses me at start. But I think if we fix that, maybe there might be some of this require error somewhere else as well. But let's just do an npm run deploy again. Um, yeah, so we require there not to be an admin to run the function. Yeah, to continue the function. So if there is an admin, I hope like we don't get this error anywhere else. We'll have to redeploy the function again. And every time you redeploy, remember like with Ethereum, like Solidity, once the function is out, say once the Solidity is out there, it's deployed. You can't change it, right? You gotta deploy a new contract, and if you want to get the old data, you gotta fetch the data from the old contract, right? But yeah. So I hope like I hope like we don't run into this issue again. But let it like upload it now. We'll get that same ID similar to this, and we can open it. There we go. So open that link. Close that. No errors for now. At least that's a good thing. So again, I'm using Gorley the testnet. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but Gorley testnet, and let's deploy it here. Deploying contract. Where's my wallet? Oh no. Wait, what? I am going to try and like do the config again. I'm not sure if like I need to do it. I'm gonna try and do the config. Maybe I just missed it in the docs actually. So let me go back to hardhead config and then match it to the other one. So we will need a couple things, right? So we have the settings. We'll need the network. Let me see if I got an error again. Yeah, I didn't deploy, so I probably did get an error. So we need the network. We need to set. Actually, we need to set the default network as well. So let's set the default network to go early, and then under the network, there we go. Um, let me create a .env file. Again, you can get the private key from your dashboard. So I'm not going to share mine, but let me pause the video, paste it in here, and then unpause. All you need to do is like on the .env file, private underscore key. You can name this whatever you want, but it should match over here. Equals to something. That's your API key. Okay, once you have it in, just paste in like the default network GURLY. Under the networks, okay, hard hat is empty, but the GURL you can get the RPC. So I'm not sure at the time of when you're watching this video if this link is the same or not. But you can just search for Thirdweb GURLY RPC. Click on the first link and you will get the RPC link. Copy that, paste it in there. Accounts, your account's private key. Save it, and then this is not the API key. Sorry, this is not the API key. It's the private key, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's the private key. Your private key actually from MetaMask. So yeah, again, like I kind of forgot because I did this like about 2 weeks back on a different project. So I'm just pasting it. But let me try and like npm run deploy again. So yeah, this is actually a private key from the Ethereum wallets, right? Let's see. If your private key already starts with a 0x, you don't need that 0x here. If not, then you do. But let's try this. Alright, so I go to URL or link again. Let me try this one more time. Wait, did it? No, never mind. Okay. Deploy. Okay, see, I think we get it directly now. So yeah, before you did have to add that config. But yeah, good. The network fees are actually low. Yesterday was like 0.17 for just deployment. So you can imagine, I have like 0.2 for it, and it used up like what, like 80, 60% of mine or something like that. And like just deploying. But deploy, come on, no errors, please. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. It's probably just pending right now. Yeah, contract pending. It's in queue. You can speed it up. If you have a lot of like it, you can speed it up. It's going to send in more gas fees, and it's going to be faster. But it shouldn't take more than 30 seconds. And like every time I've deployed one. So let's wait for it. Oh, it looks like the network's like really slow. I'm just gonna try and speed it up maybe. Oh no, it worked. Never mind. Yeah, confirmed. Okay. So yeah, it deployed. And finally, adding to dashboard, you might just have to sign. Why is it not coming up? Did I close it here? Oh no, there we go. So sign. Yeah, once you sign it, so that signature does not require guest fees. You're just signing it to allow Thirdweb to like put it on your dashboard. So that should, yeah, okay, done. There we go. So deploy done. Yeah, that took a while. I thought it'll take like a minute, like total, but that was like 10 minutes. But anyway, deploy done. This is your contract address now. And let's actually like go to the front end, create a front end, and put in this contract and see how what we can do there now. Okay, I think I'll make this a two-part series where the first part is just about the contracts, which is going to be this video. And then, yeah, I'm kind of tired. So maybe like this weekend, it's Wednesday, so maybe on Saturday, if you're watching like after that, hopefully the video is out if I did record it. If not, then you can create a front end. But I'm going to show you, just in this video, I'm going to show you how to like initialize your front end, how to interact with the contract, and how to actually like get and set data, right? So let's close all of this now. Let's close the Web3. Let's just cd. I'm going to do a fresh new terminal. So new terminal. Cd clients. Okay, let me just clear it. I should have just cleared the old one actually. Cd clients. Now we have the client, right? Let me npm run dev. So again, let's run our server. Open it there. I'm going to close everything else now. We don't need this. We don't need this. Just the last two. We don't need that. We don't need that. Probably not any of it. Yeah, just the last two, right? So this is our application. This is our contract, right? So let's start with the application side. The entry point to the application is main. So we don't. Okay, so this by default is the Ethereum mainnet. We need to change that, right? So we need to change it to the Goerli testnet, right? So we can like call chain ID, and we should be able to import that. Oh no. Okay, let's just import something directly. Actually, it comes from here. So chain ID dot. Why don't I get the suggestions? I'm having the same issue as like my last video. And when I work on my own, like oh wait, dot. Okay, anyway, it's just this, right? Goerli. That's what it is. Save. See, it takes like a while as well. Anyway, so active chain ID would be like the chain ID.save, and we're using the provider. And what the provider means is it's kind of like something like a wrapper or like a higher order component. So if you know React, you probably know this, where like basically the Thirdweb provider passes a few functions, right? It lets us use like some functions from Thirdweb, like example, like use contract to get the contract, or use contract write to a contract. There's use contract read to some hooks, for example, as well. Like that's what I meant. But yeah, like it passes in every hook, or the ability to use those hooks in every child component. So the child component is the app, right? So this is the entry point. The child component is the app. What else do with it? So let me install React. Let me install a couple of things, right? I will initialize this project, and then in the next video we'll actually create the UI. npm install React router DOM. So this allows you to like do routing between websites. So for example, like your link slash something, and then let me initialize Material UI as well. Material UI. Wait, Material. There was a suggestion before. Okay, never mind. Docs. Let's go to MUI, Material UI, installation. Let's copy that, install, and I also want to install the styles as well. So let me copy styles, install all of that. Yeah, I don't know how long this will take, but let me open a new npm run dev. Hopefully I don't have to restart the server. Anyway, so we have the Thirdweb provider. We will also need a context, right? Now I'll explain what I'll actually let me go into the app. We'll do this one by one. Inside the app.js, we don't need all of this. So let me just get rid of it. RFCE, which is an extension that's the ES7 React snippets. So yeah, it just like gives you the snippet. RFCE app. Let's save. Let's go back here. We should have an app only. Yeah, again, because I'm installing a package, it's probably optimizing those packages as well. So it might take a while. Let me pause the video until all of this is done, and then I'll come back. Oh, actually, it's done. Never mind. So let me restart the server. Okay, there we go. The app works. So we see the app. So by default it's dark theme. Let's get rid of all the default styles. So styles, we're not using the home anymore, so let's delete that. Global, I might just do like one style in here. Margin to 0, just in case, like by default some browsers add a margin by default, or some like maybe applications like Vites adds a margin. I'm not really sure though. Let's get rid of that under main. Yeah, so we should see a basic plain white app with the app written on it, right? Now I will create a context, and let me do that. So again, like if you don't know what context is, it's like a global state management, right? Where you can like have states like globally, or you can have functions globally that you can pass within every like child component. So you don't have to do prop drilling in that way. But let's do that. Let me create a few folders as well. We'll need components. I am terrible at spelling today. We have components. We might need assets as well. Like again, I'm just initializing everything for like later in the next video. Assets. We will need pages. We will need maybe utils. I don't know if we'll need anything else, but if we do, we'll. Oh yeah, we need context. That's exactly what we're doing right now. So context. All right. Inside the context, I'm just going to have one context. So it's going to be index.jsx actually for like a React component. Okay, and let's actually create a context now. There's a couple things to initially start with the context. First of all, RFCE. Why don't I get the suggestions? I'm really annoyed with it. Come on. RFCE. Okay, it's not working. So import React from, oh no, from React. Okay. Okay, that now it worked. It's so weird. Okay. RFC. Okay. We're gonna call this let's just do export const. We're going to call it the provider. So initially we'll have to surround, just like a Thirdweb provider, we're creating our own custom provider, right? So we're going to call it just state context provider. Okay, but we also need to create a create context, right? So const state context is equal to create context. All right, so we create a context. We're going to create a component or like a React component and then do something in here, right? So we can use, wait 1 second. Also, before I actually do this, I'm not going to default export anything, but let me export something else. Export const, okay, our use state context. So this is what we're going to call in every component of ours. So just that, and then use context, and it's going to be the state context. So instead of like calling use context, state context, or importing two things in every component, we can just import one thing and then use our context, right? But here's what I'm going to do now. Okay, I'm just going to have one simple variable in here, and that's going to come from a third web hook. So const, we're going to destructure something from use contract, and in here, all we have to do is pass in a contract ID or contract address. Sorry, so it's going to be this one, contract address, and then go back here, paste it. We can destructure a couple things, right? So let me start by destructuring the contract itself, and then we can say is loading as well. Okay. At the bottom, let that finish loading. Yeah, I don't know. How long will it take? All right. So because it's a component, I'll just wait for that to load in the background. Children, and then we can just export the children as well. Okay, there we go. It did refactor. So children is declared but never children, and then export the children as well. But we don't want a div, right? We actually want the provider. So state context.provider. And yeah, I think this is all, like everything that we'll need, as in for the start. So let's go back into our main. Okay, into our main, and let's import the state context as well. So state context provider. We just surround it, similar to Thirdweb, we just surround our app with, I misspelled something over here, so it should be that save. All right, so similar to like Thirdweb, every function or every variable that will be in our state will be passed onto like the children, which is like app.js, right? So that's exactly what it is. So let's console log our contract and see what we get. Contract. Go back into receipts. No, not here. This is the complete tab. Right click, inspect, and let's see if we actually do get a contract as well. The value prop. Oh, wait. Okay. So value initially, it'll pass in nothing. Save. Okay. So contract is undefined. And one last thing, if you can create a loading page here. So if it's loading, if the contract is loading, console, no, just return a div loading. No, contract loading, save. All right. So initially contract is loading. Once it's loaded, we do get our contract, and we have our contract in here. And the ABI inside the contract is basically all the functions inside our contract that we can call, right? Now let's try and call one function, right? So let's try and call, what can we call? Since we already have an admin. So by the way, this was the default event that it fired, and it added an admin. And you can see there was an admin ID. It is a super admin and the date, right? So the admin ID is basically the guy who deployed, which is my address, right? But this is the event it fired. So let's actually get all the admins, right? Let's try that. What to separate it, or maybe even I don't need to separate it for now. Maybe I'll do it in the next video. But then right, let's create a function right here. Okay, const get admins is equal to async. Okay, inside we're going to do a try catch. try catch. Okay, if there's an error, just let's console log the error. Oh, no error, and maybe let's throw the error as well. Okay, so what do we want to try? We actually want to try something. We actually want to call the contract and get something from it, right? So let's say const. Let's create a temporary variable called, no, just create a variable called result, and then we're going to await contract, which is this contract dot call, and then we want to call a function. Now, if you go back to our contract, right, inside the WEB3 folder, contracts, we have a function called getAdmins, right? And it's as simple as this. You can just call getAdmins, that's it, and then let's console log the results, and then let's go back here, there, refresh. Oh, we actually have to call this function from somewhere, right? So what I'm going to do is inside the utils, I'm going to create a, just because I don't want to like pass a lot of functions, contract.js, move this function in there, export const, and then this time we'll take in the contract actually, contract, and then it will be contract.call. So inside our app.js, let's save this. We can actually export the contract, right? So we have the contract inside our context. What we can do is allow every subcomponent or every component in our app to have access to this contract. So to do that, inside the app.js, I am going to say const the structure something from use state context. Okay, and let's get in the contract from in here. Okay, and then finally, I'm going to create a const handle click something, and then we want to like call this function. So getAdmins, and let's pass it the contract. All right, and then in here, I'm just going to have a button getAdmins. All right, on click, we are going to do handle click, save. When we click on getAdmins, it's going to return us an admin, and each admin will have some items, right? And this is how Solidity returns a value. So it's going to be an array of array, and each array inside of it is going to be one admin with like some of this value. So we can actually parse it here, right? So we can actually say, let's make this a temporary variable. Then we can actually say const result is equal to results.map. Okay, we're going to get each item, and all we want to do is return something. So all we're going to say is admin id is equal to item.admin id. Remember, like we have the admin id is admin and super admin, right? So is admin item.is admin and is super admin item.is super admin. And then let's console log the results. Let's see what we get. So get admins, and we have that. So each admin, we have one admin for now. We get the admin ID is admin is super admin. Let's try something else, right? Let's try like adding an admin now. So app.js, let's create another function, right? Let's call a function to add an admin this time, right? So export const add admin is equal to an asynchronous function. It's going to take something now, right? We have to pass it the contract like always. We have to pass in the admin ID, and we have to give it a whether it's a super admin or not. Okay, a boolean. Now in there, let's do a try catch again. Let me just copy and paste this. Try catch. We can do contract.call, or if you're doing it inside the contract, you can use a state. A hook called use contract write. It should be similar as well, but contract.call, and then we want to add admin, and Besides it, you can pass in as many parameters as you want. So the first parameter will be ID. The second parameter is super admin, right? For the results, I'm just going to console log the results. And this time, what do you think will happen? Take a guess. It will give us an error. Why? Because remember, to add an admin, if you go back to our receipt, right? To add an admin, only a super admin can do it. But right now, we're not logged in. We're not logged into our app. So how does the app know we're a super admin, right? So if I refresh, actually, no, let me go back to app. Let's create a new button. Okay, add admin. And instead of this, I'm just going to do it right here. So get admins. Wait, I want to create a function for each of it. This one's kind of like a messy front-end video, right? In here, add admin. Okay, we're importing that. Let me get rid of this on click. We're importing add admin. We have to pass in the contract. We have to pass in an address. Let me give it another address. So I have like 2 accounts. Let me give it this address and then copy that. And then let's say, so I'm hard coding everything, right? Let's say I want to give it that address, and then I don't want to make it a super admin, so I'm going to say false, right? Let's save it, and then let me go back to my original, okay? And let's say add admin, and see what we get. First error, this action requires a connected wallet, so we are not connected. So let's actually create a function to connect, right? Inside our context, we can, I think it's just use connect, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's pretty simple. So, is it use connect? Yeah. So there's a couple things, right? So let's say const address is equal to use address. Okay, this will just give us like the connected user's address. Const connect is equal to use connect. Okay. And then const disconnect. It's really simple. So use disconnect. And again, like my VS Code is just loading and loading. I think it has something to do with this extension that's calculating the total like package size that's importing. Where like every time I import a new package, it just takes forever. All right, that's done. And it's kind of like 1.8 MB. That's a lot. So let me just use disconnect as well. There we go. So we're importing use connect. Let me import that. Disconnect, use disconnect, use address. And I'm just going to like pass this as well. So address, connect, disconnect. All right, so every child component will have access to the address, connect, and disconnect. Let's go back to the app. Let's actually import this as well. So address, connect, disconnect. All right, so I'm going to create a couple more buttons. Actually, let me do a H1. Okay. All right, so H1, I'm going to say auth functions. Okay, now let's create a couple buttons in here. Let's just say connect, disconnect, connect, disconnect. Okay, and then BR, I'm going to create another admin functions, and there's get admin and add admin. All right, so, and maybe just a P to like have the address. Okay, cool. So auth functions by default. Wait, we have an error? Why? The on-click listener has to be a function, and we got, okay. So the error is because inside our here connect, we're not using use connect, we have to use MetaMask. Okay, use MetaMask, and that should work. So let me save this. Go back to our app. Let me move this around. Go back to the app, and now we shouldn't have the error. So let me do a connect. Once we connect, you pick the address you want to connect to it. So this is my admin address, remember. Next, connect. There we go. We see our address of the connected. Now, if we do an add admin, it will allow us now. It won't give us an error. Of course, because you're altering the context, if you're adding or removing something from the contract, you have to sign a gas fee. Confirm. Once that's done, we will get a kind of like a pop-up from MetaMask saying like that's done. And yeah, like maybe in the next video we will add all the oh, there we go. So yeah, we will add all the loading screens and stuff like that. So now if we get admins, we have 2 admins. Take a look at that. And all this is coming from the smart contract. That's insane, isn't it? The second admin is an admin, but is it a super admin? No, it's not, right? The first one is both. It's an admin and it's a super admin as well. So yeah, that's the admin stuff. Okay, we can remove admins similarly. Let's just let's continue to the next functions. So let's just do maybe register company, right? Let's do company function. So breaking that again. Wow, damn, this is messy. All right, admin functions. Let me just copy and paste a button. All right, so and let's go back to our contract and do a register thing, right? So copy, paste, and minimize some of those, and let's call this register company, right? What will it take? It will take in a name, an address, and the contract. So this time we're calling the register company. Okay, we pass in the name and the address. So the company name and the company address, and then yeah, let's just console log the results for now. And while we're at it, let's just also create a function to approve the company, right? Copy paste. It's so much easier on the front end. All you have to do is like just call every like contract function, pass in the parameters, and that's all. It's really simple, right? So to approve a company, all we have to do is contract and then pass in the ID of the company, ID, and then in here I'm going to say approve company. All right, what else do with it? Yeah, maybe just these 2 for companies for now. So let's save. Let's go back here. Okay, let's company functions. Okay, the first one, let's register company. Pass in the contract, pass in the name. So I'm going to say Salman's company, and then the address of the company, I'm going to say ABC Canada. All right, company functions, and then register company, and then maybe another one to approve the company. Okay, approve company, approve company, and then all we'll have to do is pass in the company ID. And remember, so I'm actually going to do this, right? Open a new window, and this window I'm going to use the other MetaMask wallet. So this MetaMask wallet, while in this one it's going to be the first one. Oh, you can't do that like if it's the same. Okay, I'm going to actually wait. Let's copy this, let's paste it. Okay, imagine this one as a normal user. Let's connect it over here. Okay, so let's connect. All right, so this is going to be like another user, like a random new user, right? And let me close that. Okay, so back here, let's keep the first one connected. It is the first one, so let me keep the first one connected. Okay, so this browser, the white browser, is going to be the admin. This browser is going to be the user. All right, so let's go back here And let's say the user wants to register a company, right? So register a company, and the admin can approve a company, and the company is going to be this ID. Remember, we're just hard coding everything, right? So let's save this. Let me add a break as well. All right, so let's inspect elements. Let me register a company now. Okay, as a new user, if I click register company, it's going to ask me to sign, confirm. Let's get that notification of when it's confirmed. There we go. So the company should be there now, right? Let me create another function to get the company actually. So this is going to be something like get admin. So get company contract, and then we want the company ID, right? Result get company, and then let's console log the result. Let's see what we get. All right, save. Let's import get company as well. So create a new button. Get company. We pass in the contract and the address of the company. Save. All right, let's take a look at it here. Get company. Our get company takes an argument, but 0 was provided. So let's go back and see what's wrong. Okay, so we didn't pass in the ID. Okay, save. Let me clear some of this, and then get company, and there we go. So see, we got the company this time, right? And this is how Solidity gives us the data. Where like it just gives us all this to us in this way and in like kind of like an object way. So let's just do something here. So I'm going to create an object result, and then result all right, so let me explain some of this, right? So remember, inside the results we do get some results, right? Now in Solidity, the uint256 is returned to us as a big number. It's not just a number, it's a big number. But we can convert it to a number. If we look at the prototype here, we have a function that we can call that's called either toBigInt or toNumber. There's a different function that we can call. So if we do just a number, we can get what the number actually is, right? So for example, the total sales, it's 0 by default, but it's a big int. So we can convert it to a number, the approval date, and so on. And then let's console log the results. So let's save. Let's go back here. Let's clear some of this. Get company. And there we go. Oh, the company ID is... Wow. So I think there's something wrong in our contract, actually. So why did it not... Oh, no. It's result of company ID. Holy crap. Okay. So get company, and there we go. We have the result. We have the contract, the company ID. Now remember, by default, an address is set to 0 times 0, 0, 0, 0, something like that. That means there is no address, so it's not approved by anybody yet, right? So the default address is this. That means nothing, right? But we see the company ID, we see the company name, we see the company address, and it's not approved. So as an admin, let's try and approve it. If we try and approve it, let's confirm. Once we get that notification where the transaction is done, and then we get the company, hopefully it should tell us the company is approved. So let's wait a second while that happens. Yeah, it looks like the network's a bit congested maybe, but this shouldn't take more than like 20 seconds, I guess. Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. So we got the receipts. Now, if you do a get company, take a look at this. It's approved. So remember, the company ID is this other browser, right, which is 5CB, and it's right there, 5CB. and it's approved by currently me, like my current like admin accounts. I should have actually tried approving like with that account, and you would have gotten an error. Like if I do this, there we go. We got an error. The caller is not a super admin. Remember, so only a super admin can approve, or an admin, one of the two, right? So yeah, there we go. Caller is not an admin. So that's the admin, the company functions, and finally let's work on the functions for receipts, right? So let me copy and paste this actually. All right, there we go. So issue receipts is, I should do them all in try and catches, but issue receipt basically takes in the contract, it takes the item names, it takes the item prices and the quantities, and it just calls the function. And then the get receipt can takes the ID of the receipt and gets the receipt, just parses it similar to what we did for like get company, and that's all. So let's try this. Back in applet.js, let's have this again. So that again, and then that again, and then let's create two buttons. So I'm going to copy and paste some of this. Two. So the first button is issue receipts, okay, and then it's going to take in items. So let's say kebabs, okay, two items, and then let's say samosas, okay, I love them. And the second thing are the prices, sorry. So let's say it's like $3 and maybe like, no, that's too much, $2 per piece, and samosas is maybe $3 per piece. And the quantities, let's say it's 20 kebabs and 25 samosas. All right, issue receipt, and then button get receipts. And remember, the receipts are stored as IDs of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that, right? So on click, okay, we can do this where we can get receipt. Okay, get receipt, and then the contract, and we want to get the receipt ID of 0. I don't know if it'll be 0 or 1, but let's take a look. Does not, oh, get receipt. Oh, I didn't save this file. Okay, so let's refresh. All right, so with this company, let's run issue receipt. Oops, wait, what happened? Okay, let's run issue receipt. Issue receipt. Hopefully we don't get any errors. Confirm. All right, give us the notification. All right, there we go. We got the notification. We do get our receipts back. I think this is just like the hex, the transaction ID. That's the one we return back. And finally, if we do a get receipts, ooh, wait. So this receipt is nothing. So if I do 1, for example, app, let's do 1 instead. Save and get receipt again. There we go. But again, in here, it's company ID. Save. Let's try it again. All right, there we go. So we have the company ID, we have the company name, we have the date, and then we have every cell item. For every item, of course, I'm parsing this here, so I'm parsing it right there. So object.cells, and then I'm parsing it. If we don't do that, if we just return the results, save, and then if I click on it again, this is what it looks like. This is what the data looks like, right? And of course, I'm parsing each of those, so this is what it changes it to. So each cell is a name, a price, quantity. And then we don't have the total. So let me do obj.total is equal to result 0.total cells. I think that should be a get receipts. Wait, where does the total cells go? In here. Oh, it's cell total. So cell total, save. All right, so get receipts, the new one. gives us the total, but again, it's a big int, so I'm just going to do to number save get total, and there we go. So the total was $115, and that worked. And by the way, if you're wondering what this question mark dot means, it's simply saying that, okay, get the sale total. If it has a function, if you just do this, right, if you just do to number, and if it does not have a to number function, let's say this was undefined, we'll get an error. But if you do this, it's telling us if this is not undefined and it has a to number function, run it. Same thing over here as well. If this is a function, run it. Kind of like that. So yeah, but there we go. So we have, like, let me rename that to receipt functions. And yeah, I think we've called every single function we created, right? Just like most of the functions we created. And all we have to do, and this will be for the next video, is convert this UI to this UI, right? And that will be more for front-end tutorial than a Web3 tutorial. But yeah, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. And if you do like it, like, subscribe, and do leave a comment, please. Thank you.